and welcome back to another episode of Mysterious Knowledge. I'm Engkanto.
And I'm Punky. This topic does get a little heavy, but if you're into a little bit of a science nerd outlook on life, it is a very interesting story as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm not going to lie. So, what do you have for us today, Punky?
Picture it. Balvano, Italy, 1944. And actually, this took place on March 3rd, to be specific. So, if anybody gets a little curious, feel free to deep dive because there's so many things that I could have put in here and I didn't.
Okay. Hold on. We're going international today?
We are.
You said Italy. Am I correct?
Yes.
Alright.
So,
Passports at the ready, Pete's.
we are going international. And for some reason, apparently, I seem to be fixating on the 1940s. That is not intentional. Just want to say that. That is not intentional.
Mm-hmm.
It just...
Mm-hmm.
I can't help it. I didn't make the timeline. I just live in it. We are talking about a location in the Apennine Mountains. Now, I will say, disclaimer here, I'm not Italian. I don't speak Italian. Forgive me for mispronouncing any of these. I am doing the best I can with a language I have never studied. I am trying here. I didn't attempt an accent. So this is actually about a freight train. It is train 8017. Anybody who's ever been through the mountains knows, in the best of situations, it's a rather interesting ride, and it can be rather chilling, maybe a little awe-inspiring, and certainly a little dangerous. Now, be on a train in the middle of the mountains. It's a whole different level, no matter what you're used to. This train in particular, train 8017, left Salerno, Italy, headed south. It was headed into the mountains. And
Right.
the towns that it was traveling between were in several of the little valley areas, and so it literally had to traverse the mountains to get to these towns. It was headed to Balvano from Salerno. Now, the town of, I am going to butcher these names and I apologize. Balvano was in between two tunnels that went through the mountain.
Right.
One of the tunnels was not bad. The other one, and I promise you this name I will probably butcher to no end. I am going to try my best here.
Okay.
The tunnel is called the Galleria dell'Armi. I do not know what that means. I'm not even going to try to pretend that I can translate that. I will probably just call it the Army Tunnel from now on. So, trying to save on confusion.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
Now, this particular tunnel was quite a bit longer. It was actually 1,968 meters with an uphill grade of 1.3%. It sounds like a bunch of random numbers. I promise you it's not, because it's very, very important to the events that happened on March 3rd.
Right.
So remember that this was a freight train. All right. It was not a passenger train, and not particularly meant to be a passenger train. However, we know that humans often don't acknowledge these types of things. And there were at least 650 people on board that train.
Um, so was this a special event that was happening? Was this just a regular trip?
I wish I could say it was something special. It was not. It was just a
Right.
train doing its job.
Okay.
This happened to be a time where there was a lot of migration. There was a lot of not necessarily following the rules. People were hitching rides where they could.
Okay.
They were getting.
Okay.
It was a matter of, this is what needs to happen. This is what I'm doing. This is how I will do this to make this happen. And
Right.
so
Got it.
they would hop rides on freight trains a lot, jumping into some of the freight cars, riding on the balconies or the roof, even wherever there was
Yeah.
space, which was not the best solution to traveling on a train through the mountains. I just want to point that out. So
No, because I was gonna say probably could the weight itself as well probably be an issue,
oh yes,
especially traveling up.
oh yes, this train was already quite heavy. Depending on which source you read, it kind of depends on how many cars you get told. The number that I found was between 45 and 48 cars. So it was quite a long train.
Just to say, for us in the UK, we call it carriages.
Okay. Do
Yeah.
you call it carriages if it's for freight as well, or do you call it carriages if it's just a passenger car?
That's actually a good question. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. I think it's more for passengers.
That would make sense to me, but I can't say that I've gone into that much of a deep dive into train jargon, so
Yeah, not fair.
obviously being in America, we
Yeah,
tend to change the language a little bit.
that is fair. That's fair. I just wanted to add that in,
Oh,
um,
absolutely.
in case, yeah, in case some of the UK people over here thinking the same thing. Yeah, we would call it carriages instead of cars. But maybe there is some difference in this type of situation itself. So yeah, it's very possible I could be completely wrong in this situation. But please continue.
Well, this particular train was carrying only a few passenger cars or carriages. Mostly it
Right.
was freight. So there were a lot of people who were displaced from regular seating. This train leaves one town, starts on its journey. Okay?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It goes through the first tunnel, no problem. It
Right.
reaches the army tunnel and stops. Now, that doesn't sound like a big deal in general.
No.
The problem, however, is that this train was being pulled by 2 engines.
Okay.
Yeah. It was actually very, very significantly heavier than it should have been. It was estimated to have exceeded the max towing weight by 11 tons. Yeah. That was my reaction as well. That is a lot of weight.
this may sound like a silly question, but is this due to the people on board, the extra passengers that hopped on, or is this because of something they picked up at the military stop?
You know, I believe that there were several contributing factors from what I could read. It never said specifically what the cargo was, but
Right.
this was in wartime. You have to be aware that, you have a lot of people who are traveling with, generally speaking, very little comparatively to how we would think of travel today. However,
Yeah.
at that time, they would have taken anything they could of value with them, especially if they were
Yeah.
trying
Yeah. Yeah.
to flee or start over or any type of situation like that. So we're not talking typically just the passenger that has a suitcase of luggage and that's it. It was definitely a varied situation from person to person,
Yeah.
but definitely with 650, 700 people on board who technically should not have been on board, it
Mm.
definitely would have added extra weight.
Yeah.
Something else to remember,
Yeah.
this was a time when they were not burning the best coal. These were coal engines. They were steam engines. They ran a low-grade coal substitute to power these trains because from the sources I read, the
Mm.
soldiers, and it said specifically American soldiers, I wasn't
Okay.
there, I can't say. However,
Yeah.
sadly, would not be surprised. But, here we are. Um, it said that the American military, the soldiers, were taking the better coals to use. I would assume it was for trains and doing military transport and operation, but I'm not going to swear that that is the case because it did not go into that detail. I would hope that it was something that was meant to benefit the people.
Well, yeah. But then I guess at the same time, when it comes to war, this is probably something they needed for ammunition. Like, I don't know, like gunpowder is essential for them in that sort of sense. They needed it for something, and whatever that reason is, it's yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm guessing resources for coal was pretty low at that time due to the war
it
itself.
was. It really was. And it was an issue for a lot of people. And because of that, it led to the problems that happened with Train 8017. And really,
Okay.
if it had been just one or two events, this situation would
Yeah.
not have happened to the level it did. It just happened to be everything hit in just the right sequence at just the right time that it essentially became a perfect storm of unfortunate events that culminated into a disaster. So,
Um.
this is where the
Crisis.
fun information of history kind of stops
Right.
and it gets a lot more serious. You have a very heavy train stopped in a tunnel. Okay?
Yeah.
So they actually stopped about 200 meters inside the tunnel. That means the engines.
This is the 1968 one?
1944.
1944 one. Okay, so.
No, you're good. There were so many.
Yeah.
This actually, it was a culmination of several issues. There had been rain, so the tracks were slick, slippery tracks with a heavy load. Anybody who's dealt with that knows you don't have the best traction. And remember, they're going uphill. It's an uphill grade of 1.3%. So you're trying to climb with a lot of weight on a slick track. So they stopped. The brakeman at the end threw the brakes on, and the train was stuck, essentially, with the engines idling 200 meters in the tunnel. Now, that in itself doesn't sound like an issue, except remember how long that tunnel was. So, what happens when you have an engine idling in an enclosed space for a prolonged amount of time?
It's going to start rolling back, isn't it?
It did not roll back. That is one small mercy of this.
Oh.
However, it was worse. They would have fared better had they rolled back, honestly.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, remember I said that they were burning low-grade coal substitutes?
Yep.
One very serious consequence of that is because it was low grade and because it was cheaper material, it also did not burn the way it needed to in order to provide the power that was needed to operate the trains. Therefore, they had to burn more to get the power that they needed versus what they would have had to burn had they had access to the proper coal. Which, again, plays into the weight factor. They had to carry more fuel than would otherwise be necessary. But another issue with this particular fuel source was that it produced in excess of carbon monoxide.
Oh, flip.
Now, one of the sources I read said that the tunnel already had smoke inside it from a previous train. The length of time for the average trip between the two stations was supposed to be about 20 minutes. And when you break that down, that's not a very long time for trains to pass in the same area.
No, not at all.
So, and because this is a fairly busy track, this is commonly one that you will see a lot of trains passing through, or did at this time. And so part of the assumption at the time was, did the train stop because of an oncoming train or a train in front of them? So that
was going to be my question.
Yeah. From the sources I gathered, it did not seem that there was a train in front of them at the time. However, one had passed fairly recently through the tunnel. It seems more likely from the research that it was a combination of the moisture on the tracks, the weight of the train itself,
Yeah.
and the lack of ability of the fuel source. Now, that's not to say that maybe they knew of a train ahead of themselves and slowed down and lost momentum. So there could easily be factors that we are not aware of that helped contribute to this.
Right. Right.
What we do know is that the brakes in the caboose were engaged. So the train was not going anywhere.
Right.
And because of that, the train idled in the tunnel for 30 minutes. And and it created a gas chamber of carbon monoxide, essentially.
Combined with the smoke in the tunnel itself, there's no real point opening the windows, I'm guessing.
No.
Because it's just bad. Yeah.
No, actually, and this boggles my mind as somebody who would assume that we have the knowledge to go, hey, humans need oxygen. You're in a tunnel.
Completely.
And a rather long tunnel at that.
Well, yeah.
I would think that there would be ways to make sure that there's oxygen, or at least make sure that there's not a way that smoke is being trapped. Yeah. But apparently the ventilation was questionable at best.
Right.
They depended on natural airflow for the ventilation. And the absolute mind-boggling part of this is this particular tunnel had the fewest and the smallest air intakes of all the tunnels through that part of the ride. Let that sink in for a minute. Why would the longest tunnel of this path have the least amount of air intakes and the smallest?
Did the people constructing this tunnel, did they actually think about any of this properly? Because it doesn't sound like they did in full.
I have to say I would very, very strongly side with that opinion. I don't think they really took the time to assess it properly or consider what would happen in an emergency. Because if you're relying on natural air intake, why would you assume that an extremely long tunnel is going to dissipate the smoke if there's no place for the smoke to go?
It doesn't make sense.
No. I mean, I will say that there was no way that these people could have assumed that they would be having to use coal substitutes and having to deal with the issues of war the way they did, because that's just that's never on anybody's planning council at all.
No.
But unfortunately, we know that emergencies happen. We know that crises happen. And
Yeah.
I feel like somebody somewhere should have said, hey, maybe these need to be a little bit of a bigger intake system. Maybe we need to consider rerouting. I've never been in these mountains. I've never been to Italy.
Hmm.
Can't speak from personal experience or eyewitness experience as to what these mountains look like.
Yeah.
So
Same.
maybe this was the only path that they could choose. I don't know. But at the same time, I feel like there could have been more done to ensure the safety of the people, if not the people riding the train, at least the operators.
Hmm.
Because
Well, yeah.
being a cargo train specifically, I understand you probably would not assume that there would be passengers, but somebody's operating the train.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be, shoveling the
Yeah.
coal and handling, you
Exactly.
know, why wouldn't you ensure their safety?
Well, so this is my question then. Do you think that some of the blame could be a fault of the design of the train as well then, in that sort of sense?
I definitely believe that even if they're not directly at fault, because
Yeah.
I hate to say that anybody in particular is to blame in this situation, because it really is just a perfect storm of bad decisions, bad planning, and I feel
Completely.
that this was just a culmination of they didn't know what they didn't know. And
No.
it turned into the perfect storm. But I do
Yeah.
feel that there were several people that dropped the ball and were not as diligent as they should have been. I
Right.
feel that the track laid maybe was not done to the best of the layout of that particular area.
Yeah.
And if there was indeed no other way around that particular tunnel, it
Hmm.
definitely was not planned very well.
No.
And I feel because people knew that these trains were carrying passengers that it shouldn't have been. The uh,
Yeah.
the military would force people off the train. They would
Right.
actually drive people off the trains and try to, in a sense, control the illegal use of the cargo trains. And in
Yeah.
fact, that had happened earlier to this exact train. But
Right.
for all the people that were forced off the train, more took their place. And while I feel for the people that saw the train as their only means of getting to their next location and accomplishing whatever goals they had, I
Yeah.
also feel like the people who were in charge did not do their diligence. You had 600 people on this train who shouldn't have been.
Right. Yeah.
You had, people that didn't mean any harm at all by any means,
No.
who were just trying to survive. But
just trying to escape.
yeah. And I feel like if this was such a known fact, whoever planned these trips, whoever planned the cargo, if they're not going to absolutely prevent the people, they should have at least taken into consideration. I mean, 11 tons is a lot of weight. So,
very.
You know, and I understand that nobody can ever fully account for how many people are going to hop on the train. That's impossible.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
But
of course.
I feel like if there was enough of a group doing it, or, you know, you had that many people who were on these trains, you could at least assume that you're going to have a fair amount. Why not run less load more frequently? Or something to counterbalance. So, yes, I do feel that many of the powers that be kind of dropped the ball on this.
Well, yeah, completely. But I also think, and again, this is just me speculating in this point. Is it a case that when it came to the military base where the stop was, is it possible that people that was on the train were taken off, replaced by soldiers to say, we need to get to this destination because it's going to be a whole lot quicker for us with our ammunition and weapons itself, which could have contributed to the weight of the train as well? That's something that I'm thinking of.
It absolutely could have. And while I didn't see that mentioned specifically, I would not be surprised either, because there was obviously a presence because they were taking people off the train. So it is entirely possible that some of these people were military.
Yeah.
And it could be that their job was to enforce the safety of the train. That is, unfortunately, there is not a lot of information on the people who were on the train, because sadly, most of them died of carbon monoxide poisoning.
There is something else I wanted to try and add to this as well, because again, this has been playing in my mind. Two things about the tunnel. One, is it possible there could have been people? Well, it probably is entirely possible. There's people waiting to jump on the train to try to take advantage of this type of moments like this, where they know the train's going to slow down at this moment. This is a perfect opportunity to jump on the train, and that could, again, as you said about the weight of the train, cause issues.
It's absolutely...
That's something I've been thinking about.
It is absolutely possible. I mean, these people weren't standing on the station docks trying to go, okay, we're just going to file in like, you know, we belong here.
Well, yeah, of course.
We're talking wartime. These people were doing everything they could to survive. And if that meant waiting by a tunnel, so be it. Or hopping in as it left the train station and hadn't gathered speed yet. Anything is possible. What we do know for a fact is that they shoveled more of the coal substitute into the engines, trying to get the power that they needed to make it up the grade. Which also, coupled with the smoke that was already in the tunnel, created just that much
Right.
more carbon monoxide while they were idling. There was a lack of communication between the engine and the caboose because the brakeman never did know why the train stopped. He actually, and he is one of the survivors,
Oh, okay.
got out of the caboose and started to walk up the train to see why they had stopped and why they weren't moving. And he started to quickly realize that something was wrong.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, he was the one that alerted the train stations to the issue itself. Now, remember I said that it should have only taken this train about 20 minutes to reach the next station.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this going to be a long walk for him?
1.8 kilometers back to Balvano. He walked back to the last station. I would assume he probably ran quite a bit of it, but it still would have been quite a distance.
So I do have to ask a question because do we know this happened during the day or did this happen at night time? Because again, going through a tunnel, how much? I mean, I'm guessing he has to use an oil lamp
He did.
to see where it's going. Yeah, so how much oil did he have to keep going and to see where his direction of going itself? This is something I'm thinking about right now.
And that's a good point. It never actually talked about that.
Right.
I cannot answer any of those questions. I would assume he probably had some kind of lamp or something to light his way because this happened
Yeah.
about 1 a.m. in the morning.
Oh wow. Okay, so yeah, complete darkness at this time.
Yes. That
And yeah, I mean, yeah.
that was, however, one of the small mercies of this event. Because it did happen at night and so late in the night, most
Yeah.
of the people who passed from the carbon monoxide died in their sleep.
That's honestly really sad.
It is. It is horrible to think about. But
they died peacefully.
Yes. Yes. Now, unfortunately, that was not everybody because they did find bodies outside of the train. And the assumption there is that they had been awake or they woke up, realized something was wrong, and probably were having a hard time breathing or something of that nature, and climbed from the train in an attempt to find their way out of the tunnel. And in fact, either went deeper into the tunnel or just did not reach the entrance in time. And they figure of the 650 to 700 people who were on the train, about 520 of them passed that night. That is a lot of people. And they did not actually find the train, was how they phrased it, until 4 hours after it had stopped.
4
hours. Knowing that the train had left the station, was on its route to the next station, a 20-minute trip And 4 hours later, somebody finally comes out to this train because the brakeman showed up at the station literally just screaming, "They're dead." The amount of trauma this poor guy had to have had after that, I can't
Yeah.
imagine. And knowing that nobody at either station bothered to
Yeah.
assume that something was wrong, I
Yeah.
don't understand it. I just don't understand what happened. It boggles my mind. I mean, I understand, mechanical stuff can break down, things on the track, anything can happen. I've been on enough road trips where just you have an issue and suddenly a quick trip turns into a couple of hours, or something that shouldn't take very long becomes a whole big event. I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
impossible, but you would think after the first hour somebody would be going, "Has anybody heard from these people? Do we know where they're
Right.
at?"
Exactly. Yeah.
Something.
Because I mean, the next stop is 20 minutes away, so people should be thinking, "What's going on? Why isn't a search party started already from that time?"
Yeah.
But then I guess at the same time, at that time period itself of being about 1 o'clock in the morning, point you said, um, maybe it's possible there's limited staff that could have possibly arranged to have that done.
And that is possible. None of the sources went into the amount of staff. And the next station, it really only mentions the name, and that was Bellamora.
Right,
But there's
right,
really not much more information other than the name in the distance. So I don't know what kind of staffing they had. I don't know if they were on the ball, had a lot going on. There's no way to know. But unfortunately, by the time
yeah,
help arrived, it was too late. To add insult to injury,
yeah.
it was covered up.
Huh?
It was covered up
Uh, why?
so that it did not affect the morale of the Italian people during the war. I can admit, to a degree, I can see the logic in that. I mean, how do you go to your people and say, "Sorry, we kind of screwed up and we didn't ventilate the tunnel good enough, and now, we just lost 600 of our people"?
I mean, it's not just normal people. We're talking about people from the military as well. So, yeah,
I mean, there is so much that would have impacted. It just,
yeah,
I think if I had been in that situation and had
yeah,
heard something like that come across the radio or, newspapers, that would have been crushing. That would have been absolutely
very,
crushing.
yeah,
I can not really justify, but understand, I guess, in having death in battles. I don't like it,
yeah,
but I can see that, especially during wartime, there are going to be battles, there are going to be deaths. I accept that that's part of the cycle. But
Unfortunate, yeah.
to hear that people, that families, entire families, died because of somebody's poor planning,
Yeah,
that's harder to swallow.
that's disgusting.
It is.
Was Before we move on, I just want to ask my second question about the tunnel. Um, the tunnel itself, is it only one track or is it two tracks?
You know, it never did say. And I have to wonder that myself, because if it was two tracks, why would one train stop for another coming at them?
Right.
So, from the research I did, I would assume, and this is just me, but yes, I would assume that it is just
Yeah.
one track. And honestly, for the amount of carbon monoxide to build up the way it did, that would make sense, because if you were running two tracks, it would be a much bigger tunnel.
Yeah.
It, in theory, would not fill up quite as fast.
No.
So, unless somebody listening can clarify that, I would assume that it is one tunnel or one track through the tunnel.
Because I was wondering if there was a second track possibly in production or being built,
I didn't see.
or if it was just.
I did not see any mention of any construction. So, and I would have to guess that chances are, if that had been an intention, it probably was not moving forward at the time, simply
Right.
because supplies at that time would not have been as plentiful.
I'm just in shock.
It is very shocking. And what's even worse, it's bad enough that they covered it up, but it
That's, yeah,
literally stayed buried for almost 2 decades.
2 decades.
Yes.
Why was it only now, after all that time, only now being revealed?
Uh, Part of it is probably the fact that there was a lawsuit from families.
Rightfully so.
And mind you, when I say it was a lawsuit, there were about 300 lawsuits total brought against the government from the families, and it just ended up being one big, we need answers and we need, something for this.
Yeah.
They asked for damages of about a billion lire. It's LIRE, so I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's their currency.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it equals out to about $1,600,000. Now, I'm not sure what that translates
Per
over
person?
into pounds, but
What was this per person or just in full for everybody?
it sounded like it was a grand total across all of the lawsuits, which is still
Um.
a huge chunk of money.
Oof.
But, I
Yeah.
mean, you really can't put a price on human life.
You can't.
And,
You can't do that. And
I
yeah.
mean, I have to wonder how many of the people that brought the lawsuit were
Yeah.
potentially children who just happened to be on cars that weren't in the tunnel, or,
Yeah.
you know, people that managed to get out and just, number one, the absolute trauma. When you stop and think, especially as a child, you know, the
Yeah, that's way too
it
traumatic.
is. How many of them might have been kids that their parents realized something was wrong, got them to the
Yeah,
back of the train, and then died? Or,
yeah,
they watched potentially friends or family who were, one or two cars ahead of them for whatever reason, not come home.
yeah,
And
yeah.
unfortunately, it does not go into any of that because,
Right.
again, most of the people were sleeping and had no idea what was going on. And
Yeah.
the brakemen realized rather quickly that it was not safe to go to the head of the train. It was not a good situation in general. And his best course of action was to go get help. And that's what he did. So even when he went to get help, he really did not
Mm.
know what they were getting into at that point.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you can only imagine how many of these lawsuits might have been kids who, mom or dad or, you know, older sibling or whoever were going to hop on this train and get out and start working or find a place where they would be safe or whatever, and then send for them,
Yeah.
and you never hear anything
Yeah.
back. These
It's
these
tragic.
people waiting for word, waiting for, yes, I'm out, I'm safe. Here's where you're coming to. Here's, I have a house set. I have money for you. You can buy the kids coats for the, whatever the case was that made them feel that they had to leave. And then just nothing.
Well, I mean, the worst thing is they're trying to escape from the war itself, and you're trying to escape from all of this, the bombings and things like this, only to end up being killed this way. I mean, there's no.
It's tragic.
It's just a horrible thing. It's literally a case of you couldn't escape.
No, no, there was no escape.
Just really sad.
It is. It's horrible to think that these people who, I'm sure they were terrified for their lives, for the lives of their families, struggling daily just to get basic needs. I mean, you already had part of the backbone of the society struggling just to
Yeah.
function because they didn't even have the fuel they needed. And when you stop and
Yeah.
think about it, how many here in America in this day and age, we don't rely on trains very often,
Yeah.
but we still have them running from time to time, and
Yeah.
some places
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
others. At that time, trains were a lot more common. Freight was moved a lot by train, and for some, that was probably their only source of transportation. We're not talking this is a minor inconvenience. We're talking this is livelihood for some, this is life for others. Their last hope was what killed them.
I gonna ask a question about this, and probably one that um, doesn't have an answer to it. How much coal did they have on that train itself? Because was it a case of each time they got to a stop that they restock on the coal, which could actually, um, again, contribute to the weight
They did.
to the train itself?
They did have to have a lot of the coal on hand. Now, it never did give an amount for how much they carried, but it was very clear that they had to burn quite a bit more than what regular coal would have been to get the same amount of power. So
Yeah,
I would say when you think of a regular engine running on regular coal, I
yeah,
mean, the pictures I've seen, there's quite a bit of coal there. And I would assume you probably had at least that area full, if not more.
yeah.
Don't know, mathematically speaking, how that would distribute with the two engines. I mean, obviously, they had to have more power. They had the two engines on there.
Yeah.
Assumedly, there was no way that one engine was going to pull this train through.
Right, of course, yeah.
So I would guess they probably figured at minimum both of these trains had to work at 3/4 power. I mean,
Well,
anything
yeah,
less, in theory, one,
it's not going to
yeah,
work.
one engine should have been plenty if each of them only had to work at half power.
Yeah,
I would say minimum, they probably assumed that these two together would each have to function at least 3/4 power. I would say they probably had a full load of ore, and maybe not quite a full load if it was only a 20-minute,
right.
but they would have had enough to get through.
But still, I mean, this is the thing because you mentioned about this whole coal, different type of coal that you're using, a cheaper coal. It's in case of emergencies like this, do they have enough? Because that could be a contributing factor. If they don't have enough, then again, they're stuck in this tunnel. And again, this may sound silly, but what if the lights is not on the train itself? There'll be another train coming down and possibly hit this train.
And that's what absolutely boggles my mind. I would assume that the way it sounds that they had more than enough for the 20-minute journey. If this is a single track tunnel, like it sounds like,
Yeah,
either they didn't have a train coming back or somebody was not on the ball. Because how do you, as a station employee, not know where your trains are?
well,
Have
yeah,
some kind of communication with them. Send the next train out knowing you're supposed to have a train coming in.
yeah, something's wrong.
I would assume there were no other trains headed back that way because
No,
that should have alerted somebody that, hey, there is an issue.
yeah,
For it to only be reported that much later,
yeah,
I mean,
does make sense.
somebody had started to question, from what I could tell in one of the reports, but it was so late that it wasn't very long before they had the answer when the brakeman arrived. How do you go that long? I feel like there should have been protocols in place. I feel like there should have been
Well, definitely.
some kind of communication protocol or logging. How do you not
Yeah.
check and go, okay, train A left at this time and is supposed to arrive by that time and has not. We need to find this train.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that would be
I mean, timekeeper, yeah.
yes. I feel like that would be logical. But literally 4 hours. And it literally idled in the tunnel for at least 30 minutes. Again, there was no communication to speak of between the engine and the brakeman. What I never did find, and so can't answer, is does that mean they idled and they were adding more fuel during that time? And
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
people started to feel the effects, and
Yeah.
was that 30 minutes?
Why are we not moving?
Yeah. Was it 30 minutes after the extra fuel was, there's a lot of open-ended speculation there.
Yeah.
So I can't say how much of the fuel had burned down, how much might have been used, or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was enough to create a situation.
Yeah, a bad one.
Because it still boggles my mind. How do you not get a hold of your brakeman and say, did you put the brakes on? Please release them?
Well, exactly, something. Yeah, just. I mean, I don't know what kind of protection they had when they're shoveling the coal itself into the engine. But again, as you said, there must have been something, someone with logical sense. I can understand they're probably tired, but I would assume, like you mentioned, they would feel the train is not moving. You mentioned earlier about them being sued by the government and the government keeping this hidden for so long.
It drug on for quite a while. I did not actually find where a solution was mentioned.
Right, okay.
I would hazard a guess that
Yeah.
it will probably be solved, and these people will probably end up with compensation if it hasn't been resolved already. I mean, I can't imagine them not. I cannot imagine the government looking at this and saying, we're not going to do something. Could not be the one to look at these families and essentially say, you're not traumatized enough to get this. That's
disgusting.
That would be asinine to me.
Yeah.
While I didn't find a resolution, I mean, I'm sure there's one out there. I'm sure. I don't know where that would be located, and I'm not even sure, the laws of disclosure on the Italian court systems.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been settled and it just was done so quietly. But yes, I am in absolute awe that it has taken this long.
It's absolutely shocking.
the things that these people went through, and the fact that it was buried for so long, the lack of closure. I
Yeah.
can't even imagine. And it makes me wonder,
And
you
yeah.
know, were the bodies ever claimed? Do these people even know where their
Well, yeah,
loved
I was
ones
gonna
are?
ask. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and even if somebody has records of where they ended up buried, because I would assume they at least
Yeah.
got buried,
Right.
were they identified? Or did they just end up in a mass grave?
Yeah. This is.
Yeah. And that is something that really was never covered. The scientific events were covered in depth,
Yeah.
but
Right.
unfortunately, a lot of the human element was stripped away in that. And there were no names, no faces,
Mm-mm.
nothing to give these people that last dignity of this is who they were. It is very.
That's really hard.
I would hazard a guess and say that those who did bring the lawsuit forward probably did
Yeah.
so because they had letters or diaries or some kind of family heirloom where they
Yeah.
knew their family was on that train. They never found them again. So,
My main thing is that I'm thinking about this. When this guy ran all the way back to the station to report this, how safe is it for him or anyone to get into that tunnel before they can actually report about the bodies and things like this? Because, as you mentioned, there's carbon dioxide. It's not something that's very well known at that time. And the smoke as well. All of the contributing factors. How soon did they have to wait until they could actually go in there?
and it never said specifically how long it took for them to retrieve everyone. The way I understood the events as they happened, he started into the tunnel and started noticing that people were not responsive or were not breathing. And so he only probably made it the first couple of cars before he realized that something terribly wrong had happened and he got out of there. And I'm not going to try to guess at this man's age or health,
Yeah.
would not even try to assume how quick he was. But
Yeah. That's yeah.
I would guess that that probably is part of why it took them the 4 hours to get to this train. I would say probably a large
Yeah.
chunk of that time was his travels back to the station. Because when they went out to the train, they took another engine out there to reach it. I would hazard a guess that it probably took him the better part of 2.5 hours to reach the
Yeah.
station, and it might even taken longer. It might have taken three. So,
Yeah. It's definitely possible. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how long it takes to warm up an engine and get it ready to head
No.
down the track. But I would say it's nowhere near a car and you don't just jump in and go.
No, 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 definitely not.
And I can't imagine that they would have, one just sitting on the tracks ready to roll. Now, maybe that's a thing. I don't know. But I would say at least 2 hours to make that journey back on foot. And I'm sure by then, probably the crew at the front was gone.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
It had
yeah,
started to dissipate because it had then had those 4 hours to burn out, or at least
yeah.
burn way down.
Does he have a name? Do we know his name?
I never did find a name. I never found a name for anybody on the
Wow.
train.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Was he the only survivor then?
He is the only one mentioned specifically.
Right. Okay.
The numbers, and I don't have accurate numbers, that's the problem. Some sources say there were 650 people, some say 700. They figure about 520 lost their lives. So, in theory,
Wow.
basic math, there must have been survivors.
Yeah.
Again, they are lost to time because they were
Yeah.
never
Unfortunately, yeah.
given a name, never given a face, never acknowledged in any kind of way that these people had a traumatic experience. They survived something
Yeah.
absolutely horrible
Just horrible.
and should be remembered. And that was something else I never found. I did
Hmm.
not find any mention of like a memorial for these people, a plaque.
Wow.
Yeah,
Literally, it's a case of 20 years. Wow.
yeah,
Just wow.
is so much worse to know that these people still do not have that basic respect and honor.
Well, we would like to honor these people who tragically died on that night. And we hope wherever they are, we hope that they do find peace. And we are so sorry that you went through that. This is the thing, I think with history itself, there's so many stories that we don't know about that's not being told, and this is pretty much what we do. We're talking about these historical events that we can find the resources about and be able to discuss it. It's really sad.
It is, I know covering topics like this, it's not for everyone.
Yeah,
It's a really hard topic. The thing that bothers me most with it is these people deserve to be remembered. These people deserve to have their stories told, and
definitely.
they absolutely,
And be remembered.
yes, they existed. They mean something to
Yeah,
someone out there. And what happened was tragic. But
very.
what happened should not diminish who they were, and it should not diminish their
No,
memory.
never.
And I feel like these stories need to be told by the people who
Yeah,
know about them, because
yeah,
obviously the people who should acknowledge their citizens choose not to.
Yeah. Yeah, which is wrong.
It is. And I feel like it's on us as normal, everyday people to keep the memories of those who have gone through this alive.
Yeah. Last minute thoughts that you want to say to about the whole incident?
As heavy as topics like this are, and as hard as it is to come to terms with the events that happened, just because this happened in 1944, if we don't learn from it, it's going to happen again. History doesn't stop just because it happened in the past. No. Life is a cycle. And the more we choose to not learn from it, the more we are doomed to repeat it.
I really hope that this never happens again. Speechless at hearing this story, and really sad to hear that there's no memorial statue, no nothing. That's really hit me harder than anything else. That's really sad.
It's not a plaque, but I hope this helps keep their memory alive and gives them
definitely
some sort of memorial.
Yeah. It's another episode done for this week. We'll have another episode soon.
I promise to keep the next one a little lighter.
Little liar. A little. Tiny bit. So you heard her say that, guys. She said a little liar, not too heavy.
I will do my best.
Do not blame me.
I will do my best to not doom and gloom us too much more.
Well, thank you, Punky, for bringing us another disturbing story. Tragic story. And thank you to our listeners for being here today, listening. We hope that this didn't upset you. We hope that you also can be respectful of the passing of these people. And a traditional thing I do, and no way am I encouraging anyone to do this, whenever we have stories like this, I always light a candle on the date itself. So if it's free, I'll go to the church, I'll go to the third row, get the third candle I can, put one in, light a candle, say a few words to these people, just so their names are remembered. And I done one for the Prosecco Village. I will do one for this one. Things like this. It's for me, as I'm not a religious person, but I feel that is a way to honor these people's spirits. So that is my plan.
I'm sure that means a lot to those who suffered through this, and maybe in a way it brings them peace as well.
Hopefully it does. We are on Spotify, YouTube. Those are the two platforms we're using at the moment. So hopefully if you enjoy this podcast, and we're sorry if you don't, we are trying to work our best. We're still amateurs, but we're doing our best that we can. That you do keep following our podcasts and maybe share it to a friend. See if they enjoy it as well.
And for those who love their social media fix, we are on Instagram. You can reach us there, follow us. We post our updates on our next episodes with links to the episode itself. And feel free to drop us a message. Give us some ideas. Maybe you know a story we haven't heard yet. Just let us know.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing it. All right. Well, it's goodbye from Engkanto
and Punky. Until next time.